Now, ours is a precious and unique relationship when it comes to the routine arming of the police, and is to be messed with at everyone's peril. However, I believe the time for a change has come. Recent Home Office figures show a police officer in this country is under threat of some form of assault every 20 minutes. Actual physical attacks on officers have more than doubled in some parts of the UK. That is why it is time for tasers to be provided to all officers who request them. This is a non-lethal deterrent, firing a 50,000-volt charge into and then incapacitating a possible assailant. They have already saved officers' lives, and just as importantly, can help keep the public safe as it empowers officers to control potentially dangerous situations. Currently, our women and boys in blue are equipped with a baton, pepper spray, a radio, and some cable ties. It makes them resemble little more than a bunch of aggressive gardeners. It is time for tasers.
Can I start by saying that I absolutely agree that the issue of police officers' safety is one we should all take seriously, and I've been as appalled as I think everyone to see footage of police officers being attacked in our streets. So I totally agree with the premise of having this discussion. But Nick, I'm so disappointed that you're supporting a call for more tasers. One of my closest friends, a lawyer, a very senior lawyer named Ebele Okobi, lost her brother last year in the Bay Area in California. He was a 36-year-old poet who was walking down the street when police officers told him to move onto the pavement. And when he refused, he was tasered effectively to death. He is one of 10 people in that county alone that has been killed by tasers in recent months. There are so many cases like this in America, which is a country I know you've been looking to in your campaign, that uses tasers. You know that black men of that age are 9 times more likely to be killed by the police. And in this country, there is also evidence that black people are disproportionately at the receiving end of force by the police. Now, the problem with 3 times more likely to be tasered. Now, the problem with tasers is, in my friend's brother's case, the district attorney said that there was actually no need for this person to be killed, yet it was lawful anyway. And you know what that means? That means that it's essentially lawful for the police to kill people with tasers, even if they can't prove it was a necessary or disproportionate use of force. Now, I am so worried about the idea of this potentially lethal weapon, 50,000 volts of electricity, being widely available among police, a large number of whom fail the training they receive to use it. It's not a light option, it's a serious weapon, and it leads to deaths, and especially deaths of black people. And Nick, I cannot support any call to see it more widely used.
I'm horrified to hear your personal instance, and obviously you have my commiserations and thoughts there. I think, if on reflection, to liken British policing to US policing is a little unfair. I would argue that we perhaps have greater restraint. If I can use this expression, they may be slightly more gung-ho in the US than they are in the UK. As regards the people, well, the officer will only deploy a taser, or need to deploy, at those who are committing crime. The taser itself sees no colour. So you will only use them if you're having to restrain people who are doing that.
Exactly. Do you know that 1 in 5 people killed by police in the US have mental health issues?
Respectfully, you've come back to
no. There are also, if you look at the cases of people killed by the police here, people with mental health issues or experiencing a mental health episode are highly overrepresented. The idea that there's no smoke without fire, that the police only deploy tasers or force if somebody is committing an offence that justifies that, does not stand up.
Nick, previously, and you were kind enough to say that you said you respected me immensely. Thank you very much. You may not know, but you may have known, because I mention it regularly on my show. I've been arrested falsely at gunpoint by Essex police when I was 15 years old, and it was a terrifying experience. I have grown up being spat at by police and being called racist names in the bad old days of racism in this country. Now, much has changed, and I can see you
it's preparing to... taser. This is horrific.
I'm going to come to the taser.
No, I'm
coming to the taser right now.
Okay.
Please understand, I am going to make a connection. 48%, according to Cambridge University, police that were armed with tasers were 48% more likely to use them, and aggressive interactions with members of the public went up, both at the City of London study and the Cambridge University study, two studies. Because it's known as the weapons effect, right? No, there's a psychological effect that occurs when weapons are on display, that both sides become more aggressive. Now, 3 times more likely...
You're going to deploy tasers where there is violence.
Yes, but...
So there is going to be a violent reaction.
When you said that the taser doesn't see colour, then we need another explanation explanation for why black men are 3 times more likely to be tasered in this country.
I've just given you a personal example of an instance where there was no violence
in the
and a
United
taser was used.
States.
But
Right.
Majid, sorry, I don't want to dominate the conversation, but Majid's making a very valid point that one of the reasons that our police are different to American police is because they are not armed to the same extent. And there is evidence that the more you arm officers, the more aggression becomes heightened on both sides. So if you want to prevent our police becoming like that,
just finish my sentence. I say that actually, so I would require an answer to those 2 studies before I can endorse your proposal.
Violent crime is rocketing in almost every city in this country. There is a growing daily threat to frontline officers. An officer is attacked in this country every 20 minutes. We cannot expect police to keep us and themselves safe armed with a baton and a cheery smile. It's not going to work anymore. It's just not going to work. We can't have officers, more importantly, we can't have them feeling vulnerable. There was a survey of the Police Federation recently. 93% of officers said they thought frontline officers should be armed with tasers. This is very important because we can't ask police to walk into violent, potentially lethal situations armed with nothing.
All right. Rachel, I'm coming to you after. Let's hear someone who's actually charged with looking after some of our police services. I refer to Antti Stansfeld, who's the Police and Crime Commissioner for Thames Valley.
I think there is a change in policing. I think in the past we didn't need to ever arm our police. The most they used to have was a whistle and a truncheon. But criminals with guns, and especially knives today, are more difficult to take on, and I think there has to be a proper deterrent. And I think a taser is a very good one. It's a step down from all police carrying firearms. In instances where somebody is threatening the public, that's probably why the police are being called in the first place, usually. Then having a taser there is very effective. It's a deterrent too. People do not want to be tased. It's not a pleasant experience, and people realise that.
Damn straight. I'll show you me firing a taser a little bit later, but I want to hear from you, Rachel.
Well, first of all, I think this idea that, the taser doesn't see colour is absurd when we consider, that it's not happening in a vacuum. We're talking about a context of structural and systemic racism. And into that, it's no great surprise that these things, including stop and search, are used disproportionately against people of colour. But I want to change this. I want to move that slightly because we're looking at issues of law and order, and you keep suggesting more and more punitive ways to deal with the issue. And I accept there's a real issue, and police should not have to have their lives threatened in that way. I agree with you, that's appalling. But why don't we look at the wider issue of why that's happening? Again, social inequality. Why don't we try and tackle it from the point of harm reduction, from treating it as a public health issue rather than a punitive issue? So we start looking at social services, mental health issues. We start looking at why there's no youth services.
It doesn't help the cops on the streets.
These things
That's long
are
term.
the things that are creating a more unequal society that in turn creates more crime.
How does that help 2 cops with a stop tonight in Birmingham?
But the thing is, the 2 police prove together, Nick, because yes, more and more police are being attacked. In fact, I think it's 27% increase. We can have a look at this figure. A 27% increase in assaults of police officers in England and Wales. Yeah. That's true. But so are the studies. That's based on a study. So are the studies that say hostility and violence goes up when you arm police. So it won't help them with what you're trying to help them with unless you provide me further evidence.
My Dirty Harry moment. Here's me on the firing range in New Jersey.
I want you to loudly say the word taser, taser, taser 3 times.
Why do we do that, Bob?
Well, we're going to do that because we let people around know that we're going to actually be exposing someone to a taser. And we're letting that subject know, too. We're going to hit him with that taser now, right?
Right.
He might decide, OK, this isn't worth it, and I don't want to continue this attack.
Taser, taser, taser.
OK, so now you hear that?
Yeah.
OK, so that electricity is going down, OK? So what I want you to do right now is switch the safety off. Immediately the effects stop.
Yes, the middle class shouting taser, taser, taser. Doesn't sound quite the same. That's a former New Jersey cop who's taking me through my paces there. I will just refer that one New York cop I said to him, how would you feel going out without your gun or without your taser? He said, you'd be asking me to patrol without my shoes. That is the way they see it over there. Whether it makes it right or wrong, I don't know.
You just said that it should be different here to how it is in the US.
Sure, but I had to go and learn about tasering over there.
For good reason, because the US has pioneered the use of tasering, and it's also pioneered the use of unlawful deaths at the hands of the police.
How do you protect police then? How do police protect
From
themselves?
the start, I agree that we need to keep police safe. But you talked about police not needing to feel vulnerable. And I completely
really
agree.
hope, Nick,
but
that
why should innocent black people feel vulnerable in the
Oh,
street?
it's not just
I'm
about. This
just
is not
gonna
just
say
about
it.
black
The
people.
statistics are
This is
there.
about everyone.
Yes, but
All right.
black people are more likely to be tasered.
If I had a taser, I
even
know
though
who I'd
they are
use it
not
on,
more
but
likely to
instead...
be
I really hope you didn't set up this entire debate just so you could show us that clip.
You did.
With a taser.